The chandelier's golden glow bathed the opulent ballroom in a warmth that felt more oppressive than inviting. Crystal flutes clinked, and laughter sharp, performative cut through the air like shards of glass. The elite of Chicago's Gold Coast mingled, their designer gowns and tailored suits a parade of wealth. At the center of it all stood Vanessa Caldwell, the 25-year-old heiress to the Caldwell real estate empire, her diamond-encrusted gown catching every light. Her smile was a weapon, and tonight, it was aimed at the man mopping the marble floor in the corner. "Play the piano. Cleaner," Vanessa called out, her voice dripping with mockery, loud enough to turn heads. "Play, and I'll marry you." The room erupted in laughter, a cruel chorus that echoed off the gilded walls. She gestured toward the grand piano, its polished surface gleaming under the lights. "Come on, don't be shy. Show us what you've got." The man, Marcus Tate, paused mid-mop. His worn janitor's uniform clung to his lean frame, and his dark skin glistened with a thin sheen of sweat. At 32, he was used to being invisible in rooms like this, but now every eye was on him. He straightened, his gaze meeting Vanessa's. Her smirk faltered for a split second. Something in his eyes wasn't right. They weren't defeated. They were steady, almost defiant. The crowd parted as Marcus set the mop against the wall and walked toward the piano. Whispers followed him, a mix of amusement and disdain. "Who does he think he is?" Someone muttered. "This'll be good." Another sneered. Vanessa crossed her arms, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her elbow. She expected a fumble, a humiliation to cap off her little game. After all, she'd built her reputation on moments like this, gutting down anyone who dared to exist in her orbit without permission. Marcus sat at the piano, his calloused hands hovering over the keys. The room held its breath, not out of anticipation but out of morbid curiosity. Then, his fingers moved. A single note rang out, clear and resonant, followed by a cascade of chords that seemed to pull the air from the room. It was Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, but not the stiff, rehearsed version you'd hear at a recital. This was raw, soulful, each note trembling with a depth that silenced the crowd. Eyes widened. Smirks faded. Vanessa's arms dropped to her sides. Marcus didn't look at the crowd. His focus was on the keys, his body swaying slightly as the music poured out. He transitioned into a jazz improvisation, fingers dancing with a freedom that spoke of years, maybe decades, of practice. The notes were a story: grief, resilience, hope, and they hit the room like a tidal wave. A woman in a pearl necklace gasped. A man in a tuxedo set down his drink, his jaw slack. Vanessa's confident facade cracked, her eyes narrowing as she tried to process what was happening. This wasn't supposed to happen. Cleaners didn't play like this. They didn't command a room of Chicago's elite with nothing but a piano and their own audacity. Vanessa's mind raced. She'd meant to humiliate him, to reinforce the invisible line between her world and his. But Marcus wasn't just crossing that line, he was obliterating it. As the final note lingered, the room was silent for a heartbeat. Then, applause broke out, tentative at first, then thunderous. Marcus stood, his expression unreadable, and walked back to his mop without a word. Vanessa's cheeks burned. She opened her mouth to say anything to reclaim control, but no words came. The crowd's attention had shifted. They were looking at Marcus, not her. Who is he? Someone whispered. Where did he learn to play like that? Another asked. Vanessa's best friend, Claire, leaned in, her voice low. You didn't know? He's not just some janitor. Vanessa. That's Marcus Tate. He was a prodigy at Juilliard before everything fell apart. Vanessa's stomach twisted. Juilliard. She'd never heard of him. But the way Claire said it, the way the room was still buzzing, told her this wasn't just a fluke. She'd miscalculated. Badly. Marcus didn't care about the whispers. He pushed his mop across the floor, the rhythm of his work steady, almost meditative. But inside, his heart was pounding. He hadn't touched a piano in years, not since the accident. Not since the world he'd built for himself had crumbled. Tonight wasn't about proving anything to Vanessa or her crowd. It was about reminding himself who he was. The night wore on, but the energy in the ballroom had shifted. Vanessa, usually the center of every conversation, found herself on the sidelines. People were talking about Marcus, about the cleaner who'd turned their world upside down with a single performance. She caught snippets of their words: prodigy, tragedy, comeback, and each one felt like a jab to her pride. She approached him as he cleaned a spill near the bar, her heels clicking sharply against the marble. "You think you're clever, don't you?" she said, her voice low but venomous. "This doesn't change anything. You're still nobody." Marcus didn't look up. "I don't need to be somebody to you," he said quietly. "I know who I am." His words hit harder than she expected. She turned away, her fists clenched, determined to regain control. She didn't know his story, not yet, but she would. And when she did, she'd make sure he regretted crossing her. Vanessa's penthouse overlooked Lake Michigan, its floor-to-ceiling windows framing the city's glittering skyline. She sat on a velvet chaise, her phone in hand, scrolling through social media posts about the gala. Cleaner stuns Chicago elite with piano performance. One headline read. Another called Marcus the mystery maestro. Her jaw tightened. She'd wanted to make him a joke, but he'd stolen her spotlight. She called Claire, her voice sharp. "Tell me everything you know about him." Claire hesitated. "Vanessa, maybe let this go." "You don't want to. Tell me." Vanessa snapped. Claire sighed. Marcus Tate was a big deal at Juilliard. Full scholarship. Youngest ever to headline their spring recital. Everyone thought he'd be the next Lang Lang. But his family, they were in a car accident 5 years ago. His mom and sister didn't make it. He dropped out. Disappeared. Nobody knew where he went until he showed up here, working odd jobs. Vanessa's grip on her phone tightened. A tragedy didn't excuse him humiliating her. "He's still a nobody," she said. "And I'll prove it." She hired a private investigator the next morning. By noon, she had a file on Marcus, born in Englewood, south side of Chicago, raised by a single mom who worked 2 jobs to afford his piano lessons. A prodigy by age 10, he'd won national competitions before Juilliard. After the accident, he'd spiraled debt, grief, no steady address. Now he lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in Bronzeville, scraping by as a cleaner. Vanessa smirked. He was vulnerable. She could use that. Meanwhile, Marcus was back at work, cleaning the offices of Caldwell Enterprises. The irony wasn't lost on him, mopping the floors of the company owned by the woman who tried to break him. He kept his head down, but his mind was elsewhere. Playing that piano had cracked something open inside him, something he'd buried after the accident. The music had felt like breathing again. His coworker, Jamal, a wiry man with a quick laugh, nudged him. "Man, you're famous. That video of you playing is all over X. People are calling you a legend." Marcus shook his head. "I don't need that noise." But Jamal wasn't wrong. The video had gone viral, racking up millions of views. Comments poured in. "Who is this guy? He needs a record deal." A few were uglier. "He's just a cleaner. Calm down," but the tide was shifting. People saw him. really saw him. Vanessa saw it too, and it infuriated her. She decided to up the ante. At the next Caldwell Foundation Gala, she'd host a charity talent showcase, inviting Marcus to perform. The catch: she'd stack the lineup with professionals, ensuring he'd be outclassed. She'd frame it as giving him a chance while setting him up to fail. She sent an invitation to his apartment, a gold embossed card with her signature. "Show the world what you're made of," it read. Marcus stared at it, his gut telling him it was a trap. But he couldn't walk away. Not now. The music was calling him back, and he wasn't ready to let it go again. He started practicing, borrowing time on a battered upright piano at a community center in Bronzeville. His fingers were rusty, but the muscle memory was there. He played Chopin, Coltrane, even his own compositions pieces he'd written for his mom and sister. Each note was a step toward reclaiming himself. Vanessa, meanwhile, was orchestrating her plan. She leaked rumors to the press. Billionaire heiress gives cleaner a shot at stardom. The narrative painted her as generous, him as a charity case. She hired a renowned pianist, Elena Voss, to headline the showcase, knowing her technical perfection would dwarf Marcus's raw talent. The night of the gala arrived. The venue was a historic theater, its red velvet curtains and golden proscenium a stark contrast to the tension brewing backstage. Marcus arrived in a borrowed suit, his hands steady but his heart racing. Vanessa greeted him with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Good luck," she said, her tone laced with condescension. "You'll need it." The crowd buzzed with anticipation, unaware of the game Vanessa was playing. Marcus watched from the wings as Elena took the stage, her performance flawless, mechanical. The applause was polite, expected. Then it was his turn. He walked out, the spotlight blinding. The piano waited, its keys a lifeline. He sat, closed his eyes, and let his fingers find their truth. The theater's silence was deafening as Marcus's hands hovered over the keys. The crowd leaned forward, some skeptical, others curious after the viral video. Vanessa stood in the wings, her arms crossed, a faint smirk playing on her lips. She'd rigged this moment perfectly. Elena's polished performance had set an impossible standard. Marcus was a cleaner, not a professional. He'd crack under the pressure. But when Marcus played, the room transformed. He began with a slow, haunting melody, a piece he'd written after the accident, each note heavy with loss. The music swelled, weaving in jazz riffs and classical flourishes, a conversation between pain and hope. His hands moved with a quiet fury, telling a story no one in the room could ignore. The crowd was no longer just watching, they were feeling. Vanessa's smirk faded. She'd expected a stumble, a nervous fumble. Instead, Marcus was commanding the stage, his music cutting through the theater's gilded pretense. A woman in the front row wiped her eyes. A man in a suit whispered to his wife, "Who is this guy?" The applause that followed wasn't polite, it was raw, standing ovations rippling through the crowd. Backstage, Elena Voss approached Vanessa, her expression tight. "You didn't tell me he was this good," she said, her voice low. "That wasn't just talent. That was soul." Vanessa waved her off, but her confidence was shaken. She'd underestimated him again. Worse, the crowd's reaction was turning him into a hero. She needed to pivot, fast. She stepped onto the stage as the applause died down, her smile radiant but calculated. "Wasn't that incredible?" she said, her voice amplified by the microphone. "Let's give another round of applause for Marcus Tate. Proof that the Caldwell Foundation lifts up everyone, no matter where they come from." The crowd cheered, but Marcus's eyes narrowed. He saw her game. She was claiming his moment, twisting it into her narrative. He said nothing, just nodded and left the stage. He didn't need her validation. But he knew this wasn't over. The next morning, the headlines were relentless. Cleaner turned virtuoso steals the show. Blogs dissected his performance. Ex-posts called him a hidden genius. Vanessa's charity angle was mentioned, but it was Marcus who dominated the conversation. She threw her tablet across the room, shattering a vase. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She called her PR team. "Dig up everything you can on him," she ordered. "Find something I can use." Within hours, they had it, a police report from 3 years ago. Marcus had been arrested during a protest against police brutality in Inglewood. No charges stuck, but the optics were messy. Vanessa smiled. She could spin this, paint him as trouble, unstable, not the hero the city was making him out to be. She leaked the report to a tabloid, along with a carefully worded statement. "While we support talent from all backgrounds, we must ensure our platform promotes those with integrity." The story hit the next day, and the narrative shifted. Comments on X turned ugly. "He's a thug, not a musician. Typical South Side troublemaker." Marcus saw the posts at the community center, his jaw tight. He'd expected pushback, but not like this. Jamal clapped a hand on his shoulder. "They're scared of you, man. You're too real for their world." Marcus didn't respond. He sat at the piano, playing softly, letting the music drown out the noise. But the noise was growing. Vanessa's team reached out to event organizers, subtly discouraging them from booking him. Venues that had offered him gigs after the gala suddenly went silent. The city's elite closed ranks, protecting their own. Still, Marcus kept playing. He performed at the community center, at local bars, anywhere that would have him. His audiences were smaller, no working-class folks, kids from the neighborhood, but they listened. They felt what he felt. And word spread. A video of him playing at a Southside jazz club went viral, raw and unpolished, his music cutting through the hate. Vanessa watched the video from her office, her nails digging into her palms. He wasn't backing down. She needed to confront him, to make him understand his place. She tracked him down to the community center, walking in unannounced, her heels echoing in the cramped space. Kids stared, wide-eyed, as she approached Marcus at the piano. "You think you're untouchable now," she said, her voice low. "You're nothing without my stage." Marcus stopped playing, his eyes meeting hers. "I never needed your stage," he said. "You're the one who needs an audience." The words stung, but Vanessa laughed, sharp and cold. "Keep dreaming, Marcus. This city belongs to me." The community center smelled of old wood and hope, its walls covered in faded posters of music legends. Marcus played for a small crowd, kids, parents, a few teens recording on their phones. His music was different here, looser, more intimate. He wasn't performing for approval. He was sharing a piece of himself. The kids clapped, their faces bright with awe. One girl, maybe 10, tugged at his sleeve. "Can you teach me to play like that?" Marcus smiled, the first real smile in days. "Sure, kid. Takes time, but you'll get there." Outside, the city was turning against him. Vanessa's smear campaign had taken root. Tabloids ran stories about his troubled past, twisting his protest arrest into a narrative of violence. Ex-posts piled on, some calling him a fraud, others worse. Just another thug pretending to be something he's not. One read. Marcus tried to ignore it, but each word was a needle, pricking at old wounds. He thought of his mom, her tired hands braiding his sister's hair while humming gospel tunes. She'd sacrificed everything for his music, believing it would carry him out of Inglewood. After the accident, he'd stopped playing, convinced he'd failed her. But now, the piano was pulling him back, and he couldn't let Vanessa take that away. Vanessa, meanwhile, was doubling down. She hosted a press conference, announcing a new Caldwell Foundation initiative to support undiscovered talent. It was a lie, a way to control the narrative and keep Marcus in her shadow. She invited him to a private meeting, framing it as an olive branch. Against his better judgment, he went. Her office was a fortress of glass and steel, high above the city. Vanessa sat behind a mahogany desk, her smile polished but cold. "You've caused quite a stir," she said. "I'm offering you a deal. Join my foundation's program. We'll promote you, book you gigs, make you a star. But you play by my rules." Marcus leaned back, his hands in his pockets. "And if I say no?" Her smile tightened. "You'll regret it. This city listens to me." He left without a word, his decision made. He didn't need her machine. He'd build his own. Back in Bronzeville, Marcus started organizing. He reached out to local musicians, community leaders, anyone who'd listen. They planned a free concert in a park, a middle finger to Vanessa's gated world. Word spread fast on X, in barbershops, at church. People were hungry for something real, and Marcus was giving it to them. The concert was a risk. Vanessa's influence ran deep, and her team was already whispering to city officials, citing permit issues. But Marcus had allies now. Jamal knew a guy at the parks department who pushed the paperwork through. A local radio DJ, Miss Tony, hyped the event on air. By the day of the concert, hundreds were expected. Vanessa caught wind of it and fumed. She couldn't let him win. She called in favors, pressuring sponsors to pull out. When that didn't work, she showed up at the park herself, flanked by photographers. She'd spin this to make it look like she was supporting him, stealing his thunder. The park was alive with energy, a sea of faces, black, white, Latino, young, old. Food trucks lined the edges. Kids ran through the grass, and a stage stood at the center, a battered piano waiting. Marcus took the stage, his borrowed suit replaced by jeans and a t-shirt. He didn't need to dress like them anymore. He played, and the crowd roared. His music was a bridge, connecting people who'd been divided by lines of class and race. Vanessa watched from the sidelines, her smile frozen. The photographers she'd brought were snapping pictures, but not of her. They were capturing Marcus, the crowd, the moment. Then, a heckler shouted from the back, "Go back to cleaning. Fraud." The voice was sharp, cutting through the music. Marcus faltered for a moment, his fingers pausing. The crowd turned, murmurs rippling. Vanessa's eyes gleam. Edge hadn't planned this, but it was perfect. Marcus took a breath, his hands steadying. He leaned into the microphone. "This one's for anyone who's ever been told they don't belong." He played again, louder, fiercer, the notes a defiance that silenced the heckler and electrified the crowd. Vanessa turned away, her plan unraveling. She'd underestimated him again. And this time, it wasn't just her pride at stake, it was her power. The park concert was a turning point. Videos of Marcus's performance spread like wildfire, amassing millions of views. Ex-posts hailed him as a voice for the unheard, a symbol of resilience. "This is what Chicago's about," one user wrote. Not her ivory tower. The her was unmistakably Vanessa, and the jab stung. Her carefully curated image philanthropist, tastemaker was cracking under the weight of Marcus's authenticity. Vanessa retreated to her penthouse, pacing as her PR team scrambled. "Fix this," she snapped. They suggested a counter-event, a glitzy fundraiser to overshadow Marcus's grassroots momentum. She poured millions into it, booking A-list performers and inviting every influencer in the city. The event was billed as a celebration of diversity, a blatant attempt to steal Marcus's narrative. But the city wasn't buying it. Attendance was sparse, the vibe forced. Ex-posts mocked the empty seats. Where's the soul? Vanessa. Meanwhile, Marcus was playing pop-up gigs in churches, community centers, even a laundromat. Each performance was raw, unfiltered, drawing crowds that felt like family. He wasn't just a musician, now was a movement. Vanessa's team dug deeper, desperate for dirt. They found an old interview from his Juilliard days, where he'd spoken out against systemic racism in the arts. They twisted his words, leaking snippets to paint him as divisive. A conservative outlet ran with it. Cleaner's radical past threatens Chicago's unity. The backlash was swift, but so was the support. Activists rallied on X, sharing Marcus's full interview, where he'd spoken eloquently about art as a bridge across divides. Marcus felt the pressure mounting. He wasn't naive, he knew Vanessa's world had the power to crush him. But he also saw the faces in his crowds, the kids who looked at him like he was proof they could rise. He couldn't stop now. One night, he got a call from Miss Tony, the DJ. Got a lead for you, she said. A producer in New York saw your videos. Wants to meet. Marcus hesitated. New York was where he'd lost everything Juilliard. His dreams. His family. Going back felt like facing a ghost. But Tony's voice was firm. You're ready, Marcus. Don't let her scare you off. He agreed to the meeting. The producer, a woman named Lila Chun, flew to Chicago. They met at a South Side diner, the kind with cracked vinyl seats and coffee that burned your tongue. Lila was blunt. You're the real deal, she said. I want to record you. Not some polished studio album, something raw. Live. In front of your people. Marcus nodded, his throat tight. My people. The ones who get you, she said. The ones who know what you're saying without words. The recording was set for a historic theater in Bronzeville, a place that had hosted legends like Ella Fitzgerald. Marcus chose his set list carefully, original pieces mixed with tributes to his mom and sister. The night of the recording, the theater was packed, standing room only. Vanessa got wind of it and sent a reporter to snoop, hoping to find something to exploit. Instead, the reporter was swept up in the performance. Her article glowing. Marcus Tate doesn't just play musicians with it. Vanessa read the article and threw her phone across the room. Her fundraiser had flopped. Her smears were backfiring. And Marcus was only getting bigger. She needed a new angle. She decided to confront him one last time. To offer him a deal he couldn't refuse or break him if he did. She showed up at the theater after the recording, her driver idling outside. Marcus was helping stack chairs, his sleeves rolled up. The sight of him, so at ease in his world, infuriated her. You think you've won, she said, her voice echoing in the empty theater. I can make you disappear. Marcus set down a chair, his eyes steady. You can try, he said. But I'm not going anywhere. She stepped closer, her voice low. Join me, Marcus. I'll give you everything: fame, money, a stage bigger than this dump. Or I'll bury you. He looked at her, not with anger, but with something closer to pity. You don't get it, do you? I don't need your world. I've got mine. Vanessa's face hardened. She turned and left, her heels clicking like a countdown. She'd underestimated him too many times. This time, she'd play dirty. Vanessa's next move was ruthless. She used her family's connections to pressure the theater's landlord, threatening to pull Caldwell Foundation funding unless Marcus's events were canceled. The landlord caved, and the theater pulled out of Marcus's next scheduled performance. Word spread, and other venues followed suit, citing scheduling conflicts. Ex-posts buzzed with outrage. She's trying to silence him. This is what power looks like. Marcus felt the walls closing in. He sat in his apartment, the silence heavy. His phone lit up with messages support from fans, worry from Jamal, a text from Lila promising to find a new venue. But the doubt crept in. Vanessa's world was bigger, stronger. Maybe she was right, maybe he couldn't win. Then he got a call from the girl from the community center, the one who'd asked him to teach her. "Mr. Marcus, you're still playing, right?" she asked, her voice small but fierce. "You said music's how we fight." He closed his eyes, her words sinking in. She was right. He'd been fighting his whole life through poverty, loss, now this. Vanessa could take his stages, but she couldn't take his music. He called Lila. "Let's do it outside," he said. "No venue, no permits. Just us and the people." They chose a vacant lot in Englewood, a place where hope was hard-won. Jamal and Tony spread the word, and by the day of the event, hundreds showed up, families, musicians, activists, even some of the elite who'd been at Vanessa's gala, drawn by curiosity or guilt. A local band lent a portable stage, and a generator powered a single spotlight. Marcus's piano, borrowed from the community center, sat in the center, its chipped keys glowing under the light. Vanessa arrived uninvited, her presence a shadow at the edge of the crowd. She'd come to gloat, expecting a flop. Instead, she saw a community united, faces lit with defiance and joy. Marcus took the stage, his voice steady as he spoke. "This is for everyone who's ever been told they're not enough." His music was a storm, fierce, tender, unstoppable. He played for his mom, his sister, the kids in the crowd who reminded him of himself. The music wove through the night, pulling the crowd closer, erasing the lines Vanessa's world had drawn. A man in a worn jacket swayed next to a woman in a designer coat. A kid with a backpack danced with a cop who'd shown up to monitor the event. Vanessa's plan had backfired. The lot wasn't just a performance, it was a rebellion. Videos of the night flooded X. Hashtags like Marcus Tate and Music is Power trending nationwide. A major label reached out, offering a deal. Lila negotiated hard, ensuring Marcus kept creative control. The contract was signed within days. But Vanessa wasn't done. She leaked a new story, this time targeting Marcus's family. She dug up a distant cousin's criminal record, implying Marcus came from a troubled lineage. The smear was desperate, sloppy, and it backfired spectacularly. The public saw through it, calling her out on X. "She's scared of a cleaner with a piano. This is what racism looks like." The backlash hit Vanessa hard. Sponsors pulled out of her foundation. Invitations to elite events dried up. Her carefully built empire was crumbling, not because Marcus had fought her, but because he'd refused to play her game. He'd shown the world what authenticity looked like, and they loved him for it. Marcus's album, recorded live in Bronzeville, dropped a month later. It was raw, unpolished, and climbed the charts. Critics called it a love letter to the forgotten. He dedicated it to his mom and sister, and to the girl from the community center, who was now taking piano lessons. Vanessa watched from her penthouse, the city no longer hers. She'd thought power was control, but Marcus had shown her it was connection. She opened her laptop, the screen filled with his music, his face, his truth. For the first time, she felt small. Marcus didn't see her defeat. He was too busy teaching, playing, living. The piano had brought him back to himself. And no one, not Vanessa, not the city, could take that away. The fallout for Vanessa was swift and merciless. Chicago's elite, once her loyal court, distanced themselves. Her foundation's board questioned her leadership, citing reputational damage. Ex-posts were brutal, memes mocking her as the heiress who tried to cancel a cleaner. She'd always thrived on control, but now the narrative was slipping through her fingers. She stopped going to galas, her penthouse feeling more like a cage than a throne. Marcus, meanwhile, was everywhere. His album, Southside Songs, was a cultural moment, played in coffee shops, car radios, even the lobbies of Caldwell Enterprises. He didn't chase for me, let it find him. Invitations poured in, late-night shows, music festivals, a TED Talk. He accepted some, declined others, always returning to Bronzeville to teach kids at the community center. The girl who'd asked for lessons, Aisha, was his star pupil, her small hands already finding melodies of her own. But Marcus wasn't naive. He knew Vanessa's world didn't give up easily. Late one night, he got a call from an unknown number. It was her. Her voice was different, less venom, more desperation. "Meet me," she said. "One last time. No games." He agreed, curious but wary. They met at a quiet diner, the same one where he'd met Lila. Vanessa looked out of place, her designer coat draped over a cracked vinyl booth. She didn't waste time. "I was wrong," she said, her eyes avoiding his. "I thought I could control you. Control this. I can't." Marcus leaned back, studying her. "What do you want, Vanessa?" "A way out," she said. "I'm losing everything. Help me fix it." He almost laughed. "You think I owe you that?" "No," she said, her voice breaking. "But I'm asking." For the first time, Marcus saw her not as a villain, but as a person flawed, scared, trapped by her own choices. He didn't pity her, but he understood her. "You want to fix this?" he said. "Start listening. Not to meet the people you've stepped on." She nodded, her face pale. It wasn't redemption. Not yet. But it was a crack in her armor. Marcus left her there, the diner's neon sign buzzing in the silence. The next month was a whirlwind. Marcus's album went platinum, and he donated half the profits to the community center, funding music programs for kids like Aisha. He performed at Carnegie Hall, a full-circle moment from his Juilliard days. The crowd included faces from Inglewood, flown out by Lila, who'd become more than a producer. She was family. Vanessa made her first move toward change. She stepped down from the Caldwell Foundation, handing the reins to a diverse board that included community leaders. She didn't publicize it, no press conference, no ex-posts. It was quiet, almost invisible, but Marcus heard about it. He didn't reach out. She had her path, and he had his. The city was changing too. Marcus's music had sparked conversations about race, class, who got to be seen as worthy. Local artists, inspired by his rise, started their own collectives, bypassing the elite gatekeepers. Bronzeville buzzed with new energy, murals of Marcus's face popping up on brick walls. One evening, he sat at the community center's piano, Aisha at his side. She played a simple melody, her fingers hesitant but growing bolder. "Like this?" she asked. "Exactly like that," Marcus said, his voice warm. "Keep going. You've got something to say." She grinned, and he saw his sister in her smile. The pain of loss was still there, but it wasn't a weight, Anna Marie, it was fuel. He'd turned it into music, into hope, into a legacy that Vanessa's world could never touch. As the sun set, casting golden light through the center's windows, Marcus played alongside Aisha, their notes blending into something bigger than either of them. The kids around them clapped, laughed, sang. This was his stage now, not borrowed, not rigged, but his. A year later, Chicago felt different. Marcus Tate wasn't just an enemy, he was a symbol. His music, rooted in the South Side's grit and grace, had become a soundtrack for a city wrestling with its divides. South Side songs won a Grammy, but Marcus didn't attend the ceremony. He was at the community center, teaching a room full of kids, their laughter louder than any award could be. Aisha, now 11, played a duet with him at a local festival, her confidence a quiet triumph. The crowd roared, and Marcus felt his mom's presence in the applause. Vanessa's world had shifted too. After stepping down from the foundation, she disappeared from the public eye. Rumors swirled she moved to a smaller apartment, started volunteering at a youth program in Englewood. No one knew if it was genuine or another PR stunt, but Marcus didn't care. He'd never needed her to change for him to rise. Her absence left space for others to step up, and they did: artists, activists, everyday people who'd been inspired by his story. The city's elite were quieter now, their grip loosening. Marcus's concerts, always free or low cost, drew diverse crowd, bankers standing shoulder to shoulder with baristas, kids from Englewood dancing with kids from the Gold Coast. His music didn't erase the lines of race and class, but it made them feel less like walls. On X, people shared stories of their own struggles, their own fights to be seen. Music is Power became a movement, a reminder that art could challenge power in ways wealth never could. Marcus's life wasn't perfect. He still lived in his modest Bronzeville apartment, still worked odd jobs when gigs slowed. The hate hadn't vanished. Trolls on X still threw slurs, and some venues still hesitated to book him, wary of his controversial past. But he didn't flinch. He'd faced Vanessa's machine and won, not by fighting her rules, but by building something better. One spring evening, he sat on a park bench, watching kids play in the lot where he'd held his defiant concert. Lila joined him, her laptop open to a new contract off-air world tour. "You ready for this?" she asked. Marcus smiled, his eyes on the kids. "Maybe. But I'm not leaving here. This is home." Lila nodded, understanding. "You changed the game, Marcus. Not just for you, for all of them." He didn't respond, but his silence was enough. He'd never set out to be a hero, only to be himself. That was the victory Vanessa could never take, the one that echoed in every note he played. Across town, Vanessa sat in a small office at the youth program, helping a teenager with a scholarship application. She didn't talk about Marcus, didn't mention the past. But late at night, she listened to South Side songs, the music filling her quiet apartment. It wasn't forgiveness she sought, or redemption, it was understanding. She was starting to see what Marcus had always known: real power wasn't in controlling others, but in lifting them up. The city kept moving, its heartbeat a mix of chaos and hope. Marcus's music was part of it now, a thread in Chicago's complicated tapestry. He played for the kids, for the lost, for the dreamers who'd been told their dreams didn't matter. And in every note, he carried his mom, his sister, and the boy he'd been, a boy who'd once believed a piano could change the world. It had. Not by erasing the pain of division, but by showing what was possible when you played through it. Marcus Tate, the cleaner who'd stunned a ballroom, wasn't just a story anymore. He was a reminder: no matter where you start, your truth can sing louder than any lie.